Welcome back to the Raw Selection Private Equity Podcast. Joining us today is Otis Spencer, an experienced private equity chief executive and operating partner, who's going to share all of his experience in both roles, his experiences of 4 private equity backed exits, and a ton more. Let's dive into the episode. Otis, if you can share a 60 to 90-second breakdown of you, please.
Thanks, Alex. Just a little bit about me. I started out as an industrial engineering major in undergrad and was commissioned a logistics officer in the United States Army. So the piece that I would like to just hit on here is the engineering part. It gives me a scientific and data-driven approach to think about things. It really helps in critical thinking. And then the Army gives just a master class in leadership and organizational behavior. And then it also provided opportunity for highly specialized advanced training. I think an example of this was my fellowship with ExxonMobil, which exposed me to nearly every facet of the oil and gas industry. While the Army's internal training in supply chain and petroleum management exposed me to ERP systems, management of distribution of all materials used on the battlefield. I would say this combination probably gave me the best start I could ask for, to get a career jumped off. So, upon leaving the Army for 13 years, I dabbled in the petroleum and energy space for a couple of years where I managed the Department of Defense's global fuel inventory for a couple of years before getting back to my industrial engineering roots in manufacturing. This led me to work for 8 years for a leading building products manufacturer. I ran 2 different divisions, and these roles really helped me cut my teeth in heavy manufacturing and productivity that's really based on the data-driven approach through Six Sigma. That's where I earned my Six Sigma black belt, and these tools have proved useful everywhere. After that, I made the jump into private equity after being recruited by an operationally focused PE firm as an operating partner, and latter served as a portfolio company CEO, where I just successfully exited that company. So that's a little bit about me.
Appreciate the insight. What's one mistake that you see either private equity or portfolio companies making, and what would you suggest to correct them?
Actually, there's probably about 4 of them if I could delve into those
Yeah,
quickly.
that's it.
And so there's 3 of these actually occur before closing, and then one of them actually occurs afterwards. But the very first one I would say is buying the wrong company. Well, that probably seems obvious to most people, but when I say buying the wrong company, I'm referring to a company that has a high degree of commodity or economy-based cyclicality. A good example of that would be a capital equipment company, right? That kind of company needs a buzzing economy, right, where everything's in growth mode. The problem with this is if the economy cycles down, then so will your orders. Your customers will hunker down to manage their cash, and then there goes your revenue plan. And there's not a way to stoke that fire, if you will. So the counter to that is to focus on what is widely known as recession resistant sectors. And that would be in sectors like business services or non-capital equipment manufacturing, right? Those things don't require board of directors approval and big cash requirements to get orders. So you need to avoid those, right? Because if you hit that cycle wrong, then your growth plan, it's be hard to keep up with it. That was the first one. The second one is an ineffective diligence process. All right. So again, before you reach any closing, as you're trying to understand and create a valuation for the company you're actually thinking about, you got to have a, a process, a foolproof process or a repetitive process that's going to help you to show the gaps in the company's ability to execute a growth strategy, right? It's a some type of an assessment of the functionalities across the business. Are they good at what they do? Are they proficient? Right? Can they execute along their task? If you do this inaccurately, the issue here is if you assess the company as being very proficient across the different functional areas, then you could likely overinflate their ability to do some of the things that's going to be required for them when trying to execute the growth plan. And the other thing about this diligence process is most people in PE will probably know this, but if the if you're in an auction process or if it's a proprietary sourcing, then the diligence timelines could be vastly different. Generally, the auction processes are run by investment banks, and they have a much shorter timeline for all the interested parties to perform that diligence. So you may not have that long of a period to really come up with this assessment of the gaps in the organization. Now, if you're on a proprietary deal, you may have a much longer time, which obviously benefits you. But either way, you got to have a well documented and repeatable process. This process has got to have a detailed 100-day plan. The thought here is you'd want to surely be ready to go on day one after closing, all right, to implement and not figure out what's going to happen here. The other key here is brutal honesty is required when you're assessing the management teams. You have to get this right. If you assess that the management team is not up to par and is able to execute the investment plan that's been developed, you would do much better by going into the operation with some new leadership. So a lot on the diligence piece. The third piece is the construction of your board of directors. A lot of companies make mistakes. A lot of PE firms make mistakes with having a board of directors that are not really constructed to help facilitate what the investment plan is going to require. We tend to want to think about having boards of directors that are working boards of directors. We like them to be qualified individuals where they can provide some type of strategic and/or operational value or both to the company, right? And then the key thing about this is you select these people, and ideally they can help you during the diligence process. So as they go through the diligence process with you, then they see just as well as the rest of the team what gaps must be shored up after closing. And then once you get up and running, of course, the board helps the operating partner who oversees day-to-day operations, how in guiding and coaching the management team. So a really vital part of the process. If you get that wrong, it could actually hurt as well. Now, the fourth and last one I wanted to talk to was after everything's up and running and you've got the keys to the company, you're trying your best to execute toward the timelines associated with your plan. Well, the first time you see indications that something may be running afoul or something's off track, the key here is people have a tendency to act too slowly. So this fourth one is acting too slowly is a mistake you have to avoid. Things generally don't get better with time without some corrective actions being taken. So you don't want to wait more than a quarter or so before you need to take strong actions, whether that's a personnel action or whether that's a process action. But either one, these things that I'm naming are all pointing to help you hit the first year targets. It's critical to hit the first year targets if you want to keep your plan on track. The further you fall behind in that first year, it becomes really hard to claw your way out of that. So those are my four things I see as mistakes. There's more mistakes than that, but these are the ones I kind of have seen up close and personal.
All for the price of one. Thank you very much, Otis. So, what did you learn from, obviously, as a dual role, operating partner and chief exec? What did you learn from your role as an operating partner that made you a better CEO?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because having started on the operating partner side, then you're in full participation with the diligence process, with evaluating and selecting the company that you're going to buy, and so you're intimately involved with what it's going to take to execute the growth plan if you actually close on the deal. Well, that gives you a really outstanding advantage as a CEO. One of the things that we have seen is, especially in smaller middle market companies that are led by, first time entrepreneurial ownership, they have no idea of the environment that private equity firms operate within, and especially the timeline, right? They are, and I guess even further, they feel pretty good about themselves because they've enjoyed pretty good success. They're being acquired, so the things that they've done in the past have worked for them. Well, unfortunately, the growth plan that's coming along with the private equity firm is going to be a lot more aggressive because of the debt that's going to be placed on the company, and so timing and aggressiveness is going to be probably way different than they're used to. So by the fact of have understanding that intimately, then if you're now acting as a CEO, which I was, then and you've been a part of these growth plans and a part of the construction of what we believe is going to take to achieve the targets. So now you can pace the company, you can set the priorities of the company, and then you can actually facilitate the resources probably better than they can. One of the things you get from being an operating partner is exposure across a wide network of resources, and not just from my experience as being an operating partner, but even in other roles and jobs that I've had. Then you've put your hands on a number of different resources to help bring in improvements. So you're able to bring in out the box thinking, if you will, and then fast track some of these things you need to get the growth plan going.
Perfect. And on the vice versa, what did you learn from being a CFO, from being a chief exec that would make you a better operating partner?
Right. From now sitting in now flip the table. You're sitting in the seat and you're there day in, day out with your team, right? Whereas on the other side of that, you're just kind of monitoring and following in. But this, as a CEO, puts you in full control of culture creation, full control of, like I said, trying to articulate the plan and what it's going to take for completion of that plan. It lets you put a theory, a concept that I call put the organization into a state of self-control. You're sitting there every day, and that's simply ensuring that everybody understands the expectations of what they should do, right? And then as CEO, then you've got to set the conditions for those things to be accomplished, right? And then the third piece of the state of control is giving everyone the feedback relative to their performance. So those are the things that you really have to hammer home, right? And you get that also from being an operating partner and just from being previously holding leadership positions. But those it is critical that everybody is on the same page and rowing the same direction, if you will, and you helping by setting the conditions to giving them, if it's training, if it's a new software system, if it's whatever it is, that giving them that and giving it to them in rapid fashion, right? The final piece is this is critical. It seems obvious, but it happens all the time. It's do not, overwhelm the team, right, with data requests, right, and unnecessary reporting, right. And so, as a CEO, you can see that now on the other side of the table as the firm is calling you and say, "Hey, can I can I have this? Can you send me that? This request, right? We need to look at this." And so it can come across as micromanaging, which can kind of kill I guess the trust and the confidence in the team that the firm believes that you know what you're doing, and so you just in general don't want to micromanage.
Makes sense. The So share with us. You mentioned at the start about your Six Sigma green belt. Share with us an example of how you've utilized that across your career and also in your role as chief exec and also as an operating partner.
Yes, so this one was kind of easy, Alex, because as a lifelong leader, right, and then an operator, you've always looked for ways to make database decisions, and
Mhm.
I think that Six Sigma gives you a neat tool to do that, right? And mainly because it's based on the DMAIC uh, process, and the DMAIC stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. So, as the basis of thinking about a problem, walking through those steps, it ensures that you will have made a more database decision and not just acting on knee-jerk reactions, which can really hurt you, right? And really blow confidence if you constantly come up with, as I call it, the idea of the week. This helps you from not doing that. So when I look at the uses of this, you can be Six Sigma can be applied in the formal projects, right? So the full-blown formal projects where your black belts will go through all of those steps, right? Collecting data, measuring, coming up with solutions, and putting the fix into control to a control situation. Or you can use pieces of it. And so what I found that depending on the size of the company and resources available, it lets you use partial or all of the concepts, right? But any of it applied is good. So as I look back, when I was in the building products company, I managed a team, I think in my second role, of about 20 black belts and green belts. So in about 4 years, we were able to complete about 38 projects, realizing almost $6 million in savings, right? And one of those projects I'll specifically describe here was in the building products industry when you're manufacturing asphalt shingles. The key ingredient there is asphalt, which is also one of the most expensive pieces of the shingle. Well, through using the formal DMAIC process, I was able to reduce the amount of asphalt that was being applied to the shingle, right? That actually yielded about $1 million in annual savings. So quite substantial and accretive to margin expansion. So that was just one of them. Another one I'll quickly talk about was one of my portfolio companies that was a blow molding operation, right? And so I use the concepts in this operation to reduce the amount of material because, again, the plastic polymer, is your high cost item there. The amount of waste that we were generating in unplanned line breakdowns and prolonged startups, right? So once we looked at that, ran the process, we were able to come up with more than 500,000 in annual savings. So those are probably two examples of more formal projects. But then Alex, there are countless example of the Kaizen, which most people are familiar with, and it's a more quickly executed way of trying to eliminate waste and make some fixes, in short order, in like 3 days or something, right? Versus the more long term designs of experiments of full blown uh, projects.
With just on the Kaizen stuff, just walk us through what the kind of, is there like a headline kind of step guide on there for people that aren't as familiar with that, that maybe want to look into lean and Kaizen type work? What would you, how would you approach Kaizen? What's the kind of step process that comes with that?
Yeah, so generally you need someone who is familiar with the Kaizen concepts, right? And so you have a leader in your facility or wherever it is, and you establish a team. You're of the workers there, a team, and so what you do is identify some opportunities, right? Some things that a list. It starts with the team sitting there and say, okay, what things are stopping you from your task on a daily basis, giving you problems. And so you kind of whiteboard this thing and come up with that list. And then you kind of agree on, okay, in about 3 days, right, or no longer than a week, what which of these will we tackle, right? And then you say, okay, we're going to tackle these 10, or whichever it is, right? And then once you decide on the projects you want to tackle, then the key here is that team involvement. The workers there in your facility help facilitate the solution.
Okay.
So that's where you get buy-in because it's their solution rather than the solution coming down, right? Been coming down, right? So they generally like that, right? And then understand, hey, this is an elimination of waste, then this will help everybody, right? Is as far as an efficiency. And it also will help the what do you call it? Probably overall quality and or safety, right? So there's the 5S process where you organize the shop, clean up the shop, throw away things that are unneeded, right? You put the things closer to the workers and the work cells that they use all the time. So it's a short-term common sense approach that you can incorporate workers in and get these improvements in very fast.
Thank you. Having been part of multiple private equity backed exits, what is some of the lessons that you've learned along that process?
Okay, yeah, Alex, I've got some common threads that I'll share, right? And so, what I would say, I've been a part of four exits, and then on several others that I wasn't on the board of directors, but generally, a good exit has a shorter hold time, right? Probably 3 to 5 years, and it shows logical growth. But the key is growth, right? It has to kind of jump off the page that you've been able to take this company and add value that will show, consistently over time. It has to be, it can't be 2 weeks or 2 quarters. It's got to be, a couple years before you have real sustainability, confidence in sustainability. Now, the other piece here is a good investment bank. Not all investment banks are created equal. right? So you would certainly want an investment bank that's associated, that's familiar with the space that you're trying to sell the company, because then they've got, tons of experience in that industry
Mhm.
and know how best to position the asset, right? Because they are going to have their key in helping you craft the story, right? It's you really want to craft a story that nobody can pass on and are willing to pay premiums to get this asset, right? And a part of that is them working with your management team and rehearsing them really, really heavily, right? And so that when they are up in front of the prospective buyers doing the management presentations, they come across strong, knowledgeable, and confident. It's like, okay, these guys are going to work. We don't have to replace these guys. I got faith in these guys, which is really key, right? When people are evaluating, the company. So the investment bank is key. The other piece here is during the sale process, the company's performance cannot slide. You must maintain good performance during the process. So whatever the forecasts are, you need to hit it. If you don't hit the forecast during the process, that's a red flag. That's a red flag, and it brings up questions of sustainability. Okay, so it's like, can we really sustain what's going on here? Has this growth been a blip on the radar? Is there something else that we don't know here? And so you could wind up either getting a heavily discounted offer, or heck, buyers could pull out of the deal altogether, right? So the final piece that I would mention is just the difference in telling the growth story, organic versus inorganic. Sometimes there's a combination of both. And what I'd say about the organic growth is that's usually straightforward, and buyers, no problem. They get it because you've probably commercially expanded your market share, right? Maybe you've introduced new products or services,
Mhm.
right? You've done things that are just easy to follow that are sustainable. So people generally follow that, like, yeah, we will really like that. Okay. Now, if your growth is more organic, inorganic, then that means that you've executed some type of a consolidation or roll-up strategy, right? And you bolted companies onto a platform company. On those, while you can show explosive growth by doing that, because essentially what you've done is bought EBITDA, right? So you can show, or can show, explosive growth, but more sophisticated buyers are going to look at this and look deeper to see if these companies that you bolted on have been actually integrated, right? And do these companies actually make sense strategically given the overall, platform and the direction that it goes in? So I've seen some companies that have executed what appear to be a successful bolt-on strategy and really explosive growth, but have had a couple of busted auctions, right? Because buyers sniffed out that these companies weren't integrated, or maybe they just didn't make sense strategically on why they were bolted on in the first place. So just a little more tricky on the inorganic part.
Perfect. So tell me, what do you read, watch, listen to, Otis, that you recommend that others should check out, please?
Yeah, I'd say it starts with every day with my mobile version of the Wall Street Journal. So yeah, I've got it set to alert me on different things. So I'm constantly looking at that. And then the other thing that I think is just imperative on the PE side, Alex, is PitchBook. The PitchBook Daily comes out, and a daily newsletter of the latest transactions, just different things that are going on in the PE space in general, financing uh, indicators, all of the above. So those things I kind of stay close to, and then any and everything that has anything to do with specific markets that I'm in or looking at. You want to stay abreast of those. Right. So if you're chasing a deal in aviation repair, so any of those trade magazines, associated magazines with specific industries.
And if anybody wishes to reach out to you, Otis, post this podcast, how best do they get in touch, please?
Yeah. They can see me on LinkedIn, and they can hit me by email directly, ospencer1 at yahoo.com. And my phone number, my cell phone is 404
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming on, sharing your journey in private equity, both as a operator and also operating partner. So thank you very much for coming on and shared everything you have done, Otis.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
And as always, thank you very much for everybody who's tuned in yet again to the Private Equity Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe. You'll be notified of the podcast that comes out every single week. But till the next time, keep smashing it, and thank you very much for tuning in.